Live streaming is on.
Hello, hello.
Hi, how are you?
I am blessed. So
Good.
so this is it a therapy that you do for the eyes or
It's a treatment in the left and 25 in the right, so it's working. It's just that it's hellacious.
uh,
Then stick this eye clean through each eyeball all the way to the back
wow.
to deliver the medicine.
Uh, uh,
Because you know see how thrilled I am. But hey, Jesus is good. It's working.
yeah. Let me close my window so I don't have interference. Well, I have been how can I say? I've been I will not say because I haven't been watching the Republican
I cannot.
because I decided
I just can't.
I didn't want to be in the number.
Well, I wouldn't have a TV screen left at the least. I catch every now and then on the news they put up something and I go, oh, I mean it's just a lie fest. You know, Lord have mercy. It's a wonder they don't combust.
Well, and now the story is that everybody's coming out with their tell-all book. So,
yeah.
So the latest,
interesting, huh?
The latest is the first lady with her tell-all book. That should be interesting, to say the least.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't feel sorry for Melania. Melania should have booked a long time ago. I think she has waited a little too late. But
well,
it's not my business.
I think she's positioned where she wants to
well,
be.
I'm clear.
You know,
She's where she wants to be, or she wouldn't be there. But I'm saying she's well, the thing about sin is it always makes you stupid.
Yeah, and so I think it's rather interesting because in looking at today's chat, I was inspired to kind of reflect on Dr. King's speech at Spelman College, where he talks about how to go forward from this mountain.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And if you have, because I put it in the chat here, it says, in the Founders Day address at Spelman College, King identifies four symbolic mountains: relativism, materialism, segregation, and violence that must be overcome if we are to go forward in our world and if civilization is to survive. He also criticizes the profit-making and profit-taking aspects of capitalism and warns of the danger of being more concerned about making a living than making a life. And I think we are there.
We're absolutely there. Nobody doubt it.
And so when I was looking at it, I thought how apropos, how fresh. You know, we're always trying to. I was listening to T.D. Jakes, and the guy was asking him how he managed to be fresh when he goes to the pulpit. And he said, well, aren't you fresh? You know, the point of the matter is if you've lived and you've not denied, negated the fact that you do some things, you remain fresh because
that's how
life will not allow you. That's, you know, I mean, you're either fresh or not. You're either fresh or dead. Okay.
Yep, that's kind of how it goes.
And so I think looking at that standpoint, I got a message today that said that they have come down with COVID cases at UVA.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And
And
so,
did you see the thing they put out doesn't answer questions? I'm going, wow, so many questions unanswered. A whole page of stuff and the most salient questions never answered.
well, because I think it's kind of the same. Okay, so even here, when they decided that, well, we must move forward, and so moving forward
Mm-hmm.
meant that uh, that you had to deal with a classroom, especially if you're a teacher,
Yep,
and
that's what it means.
moving forward, I guess in looking at the delicate balance in the whole thing is if people um, find that they're not giving their children up to Moloch, okay,
Huh.
then they're a little more, how can I say, less stressed about moving ahead and anything else. So,
Mm.
good afternoon, John Brown. Okay.
Salutare tutti.
Hello. Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Hi, Brenda.
So, pretty much what's happened is that they have added, new chairs, and they've come up with various models of how to handle the situation. And they've come up with these chairs that kind of swivel, and I'm just thinking, okay. So somebody got that contract.
Lot of money.
And so you're looking at the chair, but I mean, what does it have to do with kids? They're still, until you take a couple of rows out of the classroom, they're still like sardines in that. So, I mean, we haven't really come up with a good solution to it, to make parents and children, as well as the teachers that have to teach, feel secure in moving into that. But I think it comes. But I think we have to go back to John. I placed in the chat for this for Jitsi a little reflection, because I wanted to kind of focus and think about some of what Dr. King said in his speech at Spelman College. And he was saying, in order to go forward from this mountain where we find ourselves, he identifies four symbolic mountains: relativism, materialism, segregation, and violence, that must be overcome if we are to go forward in our world and civilization is to survive. He also criticizes the profit-making and the profit-taking out, profit-getting aspects of capitalism, as he warns of the danger of being more concerned about making a living than making a life. And so I think we're there with this challenge of COVID-19, especially with the last part. So whether we move forward because they want to make money, or they want to move forward despite the fact that a lot of people are still dying, and there are not enough testing, and there's not enough tracing, and all the other reasons that are there. So the floor is open for anybody who wants
what
to.
was you said the four pillars, the four mountains?
Allora, King identifies four symbolic mountains: relativism,
Yeah,
materialism,
right.
segregation,
Yeah.
and violence.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
And so he kind of launches into this talk about with the whole relativism thing, is that it's kind of cool to, it's easy to get caught up in that, almost like the story with the Israelites. How long are you gonna stay up on that mountain? Okay, are you planning to go from the mountain and land? And so, if you just caught up in the feelings of having to defend the territory, and that's a good thing, you can stay on that forever, but you're never going forward.
Yeah.
Okay, or, and and then you get into the whole ethical and moral relativism, and and the whole thing is that nobody wants to get caught on the other side of any of the either the relativism or the materialism or segregation, whatever. And I think he poses a great point. I think when we hear what he has to say, just in this small paragraph, it's almost as if he looked through
the windows of time,
which is things only. He looked at time and say, here we are in 2020 in a pandemic, where people are hurting, and the president is sending from the Treasury Department letters that say, this is your stimulus thing, and it's coming in the mail with signature included.
yeah, with my signature on it, and we've had the naturalization ceremony at the White House, and people didn't realize that they were going to be part of the convention. And Pompeo, in Israel or wherever he is, it's
on a rooftop in Israel.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, are you all serious? Of course,
there is no longer any protocol, any decorum, any.
Wait, I missed that. I missed both of those because you have to understand. I live in another country.
You do not carry on political foolishness from the White House. You don't campaign from the White House ever. Right. He did a naturalization service at the White House, and it was as part of his the RNDC.
Yep.
And the people who were being naturalized, 5 of them, who were 5 years to get to this place, they had no idea that they were going to be a part of the convention.
Christmas turkeys.
Yeah, they weren't asked and they weren't told, which is I'm trying to find a nice word. I can't.
Well, we call it
failure to disclose.
Yeah,
we call it dog and pony show in the world of.
Oh wait! It gets better, because in that he used the Marine decorum, he used the soldiers, he used everybody.
Yep, everybody. He used that's his MO. He uses you.
Yeah. Total absolute forget about it, all of that.
And I mean, if I hear one more lie, I mean, did you know, John, that he's been the best president for African Americans since Lincoln? I don't know how I missed that.
If they drinking Trump water.
Well, I don't drink that stuff, but I'm just going, wow. I mean, the stuff that comes out his mouth, it's amazing, and there's no check on him. He just, because I know if I'm lying. If I'm gonna lie, that's not my style. I don't lie by just telling an outright lie. I know how to lie. I'm a human being. But if I'm gonna lie, I just don't tell stuff. You don't ask me, I ain't gonna tell you. That's a different approach to just make up a lie and tell it. You hear what I say? I'm going, wow, it's just brand new.
And the other side of it is that if you become a part of that team, you have to learn how to do the same thing, because that's part of the.
You got to show that you have an affinity for it before they'll even look at you.
Yeah.
Yep.
You ain't got to learn that. You got to show that you already got that down pat. Yeah. Because that's what they hire you for. You got to be willing and able to hit the ground running, lying.
And so what we're seeing with the Joy hearings, where Madam Patterson practically took him hung him out to dry from Boston, was that when they asked if they knew he had all of these red flags in his background as a CEO for the previous ones with problems with civil rights and other stuff, and they asked the guy, the governor, governor's board, if he knew about it. He claimed he feigned ignorance relative to all of that, and he said, and he was not on the final list, the final cut of 53 or so people. And ultimately, when they got down to 14, he kind of snuck back into the whole thing. And
yes,
so
well,
he was responsible. He was this is a no-brainer, because he was a responsible person in the president's team, you know, when he was running for office. So, you know, it's like, how many? And he just gave $1 million.
Is that the joy?
That's the joy.
Yeah. Yeah. A paid hiring mercenary.
Yep.
Well, that's what they do. I mean,
and
that's the same thing happened with the guy in Ukraine.
No, because
right, it had nothing to do with it.
But I
you
mean,
wanted him to hire somebody who knew something.
Yeah, but that's the
He
modus.
knew he halfway knew the price of a stamp.
Yeah, but that's the modus operandi.
And that's all he knew.
This is just normal fare, because hardly anyone that they've selected, other than
knows anything.
They're qualified.
Novices. They have no experience in that. You know, where you think the guy of housing and so on and so forth would be in the medical side, because he's a physician. He has no experience. You know, only thing we know is he and his wife spend a lot of money, you know, decorating their homes,
the office,
and their office, you know, and so on and so forth. So I just think that we have one of those situations where the arrogance is just of a nature that is so blatant that it says, I'm going to choose this one, I'm going to put them in place, and you know, and I will have my way relative to the various scenarios that come across the table, decisions that may need to be made. But I think the question or the focus that I'd like to see that we talk about today is, how do we go forward? Okay, otherwise we do the whole relativism thing, you know, and then we banter back and forth, you know. But I think it's important to consider, because you get into whether it's morally or whatever, and the whole point of what they're making is what Dr. King said, is that, you know, they go through the whole thing, but they realize that a little bit, that the most important thing is not to get caught. Not to get caught.
At the heart of this, we're back to America's original sin, and we don't want to talk about it. But we have lied, we have covered up, we've done everything possible. This is the time when we have to stop lying. We got to turn and face the truth squarely in the face. I just saw this morning the 7 bullet holes in his back. And they're looking toward him, and the teenager whose mother drove him to that city so he could see people. And he's fully armed, walking on the streets, and the cops look at him and let him go by. In what universe is that even possible?
And he would be eligible to do an open carry if he were 18 or 17.
But this boy's wife, he's passed, and the people in the crowd told the cops he just shot and killed 2 people, and they still let him walk by. Had he been white black carrying a gun, he didn't even have to carry a gun, as Jacob Blake proved. He just was black, and they shot this man in his back 7 times with his children watching. And then you're going to be, here's some idiot at the Republican convention saying there is no problem with racism in this country. Are y'all kidding? The problem is the lies we tell. And what God is showing us through all of this is that it is time to stop lying. That house is on built on a foundation that cannot last. In fact, it has crumbled, not crumbling, that has crumbled. So anything we try to build on, it will not last. That's gone. The new reality is you got to face what is. The history of this country is that some people have been brutalized and murdered and still are at the behest and on behalf of another group of people who use the Bible and God to say that makes it all right. It is not all right. It was never all right. And we've got to deal with that reality. We can go forward from here, but we cannot until we tell the truth. And I say all the time, and I'll shut up a minute, I do not ask white people to be guilty. White guilt is always dangerous, deadly. I don't want you to be guilty. I want you to take your foot off my neck and just not let me live the way you want to live. That's all. Just don't bother me. And don't bother my babies. Let us live the way you want to live. That's all. And if we were going to kill y'all in your beds, we could have done it a long time ago. We fix the food, we raise the children, we clean your houses. What don't we do for you? If we were going to do to you what you have done to us, we would have done it a long time ago because we've had plenty opportunities. So to understand, we're not going to do that. But what you're not going to do is go keep on killing us. And think there are repercussions. Because you really don't want a race war. You really do not.
No, you know, they still think they lived back in the day when they could just run amok and nobody would say nothing. Yeah. And that's just not true.
Well, this administration is bucking for a race war because they feel that because the more...
It's called divide and conquer, Amara.
Yeah, well, not just that. If the more he focuses on that, then you go back to the situation. In fact, it was interesting what they were saying in Kenosha. They were saying that they had come up with a curfew, and at first they had set the curfew at 7, but at 7 it started to get darker, and that was when a lot of the violence started. However, the people were protesting, cutting off at 6 o'clock or so, and those were peaceful and nonviolent and the whole thing, which leads you to believe that the infiltration of other entities that have nothing to do with the situation is what's carrying this out.
Right.
Exactly.
Which is adding fuel to this fire. And and as the lady before she was on the way out of the office, she said, this more violence is adding more interest in the whole Trump campaign. He gets stronger from the Conway. Even the situation where the daughter is emancipated, wants to emancipate herself from the household, and the comments that she's making relative to
Kelly and Conway.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, which explains all the dog whistles to white supremacists. That's why, from the very beginning, Trump has been in league with them. They want a race war, and he wants them to distract from what he's doing with their violence, because the violence is them.
Yes.
Yeah, they're proving that beyond a shadow of a doubt. They're the ones that are in here instigating in the middle of all these things.
Need we look back at Charlottesville to show us?
Well, we're right here.
It's frankly, and I wrote a little piece, a little paragraph. I remember being a student at the University of Virginia when we were concerned about the Vietnam War and enough Black people on the campus and our safety and our inclusion. And at a certain point, they said, okay, this is when there was President Shannon. And he said, okay, we're not having that here. They sent in 2 Mayflower trucks. They opened the back up, and they were full of policemen, and they were lined up back to back down from the rotunda all the way down to the bridge in front of the medical center, because they were not having it. And at a certain point, you know, we continued to stand and protest, and then they broke out the dogs and everybody ran for cover. It was just that, because they were not going to have it.
They didn't do any of that when the alt-right came. You see,
Absolutely.
I was on the corner listening to the police, the city police asking the control. And all that mess broke out on the 11th. That's when we were, this is after they finally let us out of lockdown at St. Paul. A mess. And let me tell you, there were no police. Not like that.
Wow.
They weren't there. I mean, that's why everybody was appalled. So when are the police coming? They weren't coming. They didn't.
Well,
a marked difference in the responses to when you were talking about in 2017.
Well,
this was there.
Well,
it was appalling.
The thing that amazes me is that I'm on the other side of the world, and I'm looking at them go from downtown. You know, it's a stretch going from downtown at the monument to end up on the grounds and going up Main Street. So they just had a free fall and then just added people on at the end. And, you know, and so, you know, if when you see, I mean, I know that, you know, my hometown always wanted to be known all over the world, but I can't turn the TV. I can't turn the TV on in Al Jazeera. The Arabs are talking, the Jews are talking, and everybody's pronouncing Charlottesville correctly. Okay.
Yeah.
So that just kind of stunned me with that. But then when I saw them with the torches and all of the other stuff going across the sacred lawn, you know, and the grounds and all of that, I had to do a double take. Great disbelief.
Must give us pause.
Yeah, I really had great pause to
wait a minute, what? It was surreal. It was in every way. I was on that corner. We just got out of lockdown at South St. Paul's, and I was waiting for my ride to pick me up. And I'm sitting, you know, that little ledge out at front of the bank in that store right on the corner beside St. Paul's.
Right.
I'm sitting there, and I look to my right, and this is a ambient light coming up, and I could hear all these voices, and I said, "What the hell?" And it was that crowd of tiki torch bearers, and I went, "Jesus, I'm out here with my black self on this corner," and I said, "You know, I'm tired and I'm sick. You know, I'm so surviving. Jesus, and I cannot run. I'm gonna need you to do something before they get here. Now I'm trusting you, Lord. It's in your hands." And they didn't come all the way down. They went to the statue there, just above where I was. But I'm going, because I went, this is not good. This is not good. And the Lord, I wasn't where they were headed. They were headed they stopped just above where I was, for which I thank God. Because I'm going, this is not a tenable position, Jesus. What you gonna do?
Yeah.
I'll never forget it. He's the Lord. And we had a brother there from Waynesboro, and he was hot. I need to go up there and say, "No, you're not going anywhere." I said, "These are the days when black folks get killed. You're not going anywhere." There's a lady friend he was with, and I said, "We can't let him go." And literally, the women around him, he said, I know your blood is boiling, but you're not going to die tonight.
Right.
Sit down. Or walk back and forth, but you cannot go up there toward where that nest is. You cannot. Because you can feel it in your bones. This is, if it could get deadly, it would get deadly. And it's much more likely to be so if this black man telling them they're wrong. We already know they're wrong. If they don't know they're wrong, they don't want to hear they're wrong.
Right.
He wasn't going to tell them that night, by the grace of God. If we had to lock him down, he wasn't going.
And didn't you have also an open carry situation also there? People,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Virginia's open carry.
Open carry. Durham, beyond belief. You know, why do we have a university if nobody's going to be smart enough to build themselves with some information?
Absolutely. And I mean, and the truth is that you're only a stone's throw from the president's house. That to me is, you can't miss it. I mean.
That's another story, because the way it was told is nobody could see and they didn't know what was going on. But you can't live in the president's house without seeing it. If you couldn't see it,
see everything.
all you could go up six.
Right. And what you can't see, you already got a call from the UVA police commander telling you got troops on, you got folk on the line with torches. You're afraid.
Yeah. I tell you what, I bet you there's one happy woman that she is not at that place and she does not have the realm. She doesn't have that's just, I'm sure she's tired. And I do not resent her having some rest, because that's enough.
Yeah.
So it's Ryan's baby now. That sister is glad to be gone. You hear me?
Yeah. And you know,
absolutely.
See, you know, this is it's interesting for Charlottesville to pass through the spectrum, and people say, why Charlottesville? And my response is, why not? Okay, it's
because it's sensible. It's historically and logically placed to be Charlottesville. Perfect spot.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And it's where, you know, this whole movement that came later on, where they were actually putting up these statues. I think they said this came about around in the 50s or so, or even later, because they began to put up these statues of these Confederate leaders as a means of detailing space, you know, reminding people that of what the territory was, who the territory belonged to,
right?
And so that was
it's not that late. It's like what, 30?
No, a lot of this came.
Yeah.
A lot of this came
well,
after.
I mean, in Charlottesville, I'm thinking of this is the Stonewall Jackson fest.
But a lot of that came in really after that, when they decided to start urban removal.
Right.
You know, and so it was like the whole thing of saying it's the whole thing about the South rising again. Okay, that's the part that is just.
And urban renewal, as they call it, is a very handy tool. I was just listening to reports of Hurricane Laura and Katrina, and you know, in New Orleans, the black community was destroyed in many places. It's never coming back. It's really what the hurricanes can wipe away. Urban renewal didn't make any more room for. It's just gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
The whole zip codes are gone, never to be returned. Now the white areas would be built, but the others, the black areas, the poor areas, they weren't.
Well,
no, they weren't planned for this.
Well, the deal with New Orleans is this: that it wasn't the hurricane that did it. it was the fact that the levees broke, and you know, they didn't do anything to maintain the levees from destroying all of the that's there, and so
that makes my point even more exactly. They didn't do anything to maintain the levees. The people who are going to be most discomforted by levees not being maintained were poor and Black people.
Yeah.
And so any plans for the growth of the city or rearranging, that's already taken care of by neglect and by the use of money for folk who've already got it. It's quite an insidious plan. Well, it's quite an insidious plan.
And so after all of that, then the monies that came through were given to places that really didn't need it, and so were given to places that really didn't need it, and so you have this whole situation where people were physically, there were people moved as far away as Seattle.
Child, they were all over the place. Some people even went to Canada. Yep. Didn't they go to Canada?
Yep,
they did. All over the place. You know.
Yep. Paul Morton, the Bishop.
Latest tidbit. In the amount of monies that were supposed to be set aside for natural disaster relief, of those monies, Trump has pilfered $44 billion.
Absolutely. So we already had a situation with his predecessor, with Bush in that whole storyline.
Oh Lord, I'll never forget those photos.
You know, and so when
you're doing a good job there, buddy.
so when this came around, and the whole thing was is that, you know, those people that left and were property owners, they didn't do anything. They just let the properties rot. They just let them go. And then they started to sell off that, you know, the stuff, offering people pennies on a dollar. And then the monies came in, and you know, they started with the development of the various areas. So this was almost like a windfall.
It was a windfall, and it goes back to what Dr. King was saying about our love of money. I have family and friends in Houston, and poor people with COVID-19 were told to just shelter in place for this horrible storm because no shelters would house them.
Correct.
Y'all just take your chances wherever you are, because nobody's going to house you. I mean, how clear can you get? These people are sick, and the city says, we're not going to do anything for you. We're not going to designate any housing for you. No one's going to house you. Stay right where you are and survive if you can, and if you don't, oh well. They said it. They just said it.
It's rather interesting to see this happen after a few years of enlightenment or attention, where they decided that, okay, we're going to try and block everything that comes through this particular president, and we're not going to happen. And so, in spite of all of that, they still have a version of Obamacare that they can't seem to erase, because, and the truth be told, it's the only thing that's still in place for people to get through these difficult times and what have you, because they have had.
He's in court today trying to destroy that. He's in court right now.
Yeah, they've had years and years to come up with a plan, but they have no plan.
And that's it. You know, they're asked about Joe Biden's plan. Trump never has had a plan and doesn't have one today. He's never had a plan. He's just doing whatever it is. Yes.
Excuse me. First of all, for the last 12 to 16 years, the Republicans have had no plan. They've been arguing about this whole plan thing since forever and haven't
And
come
they
up
have
with
no
the first
plan.
paragraph. Exactly. And then they get him and there's no plan. And
There's
yet
never
at the
been
same
one.
time,
I
exactly.
was visiting somebody in the hospital
Wow.
a few years back, and in the next bed was this older white man who could barely talk. He had just escaped dying because he'd been treated. And he was talking about Obamacare and how he couldn't stand it. And I couldn't take it anymore. And I finally looked at him and I said, "Sir, do you realize that it's Obamacare that made it possible for you to be treated in this hospital and not to die?" And he looked at me, he said, "Really?" I said, "Really? Have a nice day."
Yeah.
The brainwashing that people are undergoing is just, it's unfathomable. I'm going, people are voting against their own self-interest. They're
Of
taking
course.
information that you give them for their own good and they turn it around. Folks are breaking people's jaws and shooting them because you ask them to wear a mask. The mask is for their protection as much as anybody's protection. And you know, people have lost their minds. God gave us big old brains, but you really have to use yours. I really have to use mine.
So,
Why not?
okay, the husband's in the DMV. The wife says she's going to accompany him. Everyone else in the building has a mask on. And he goes in to take care of business, and she says, "Well, I'm accompanying my husband." And the guy that is screening people to get their service and give them numbers and so on and so forth says, "Excuse me, ma'am, but you cannot come in any further than where you are. You really shouldn't be in the building at all without a mask." And she proceeds to tell him it's her right to be in the building with no mask on when the issue has already been stated that she can't be in the building without it. And so then they have to go through this whole rigmarole, and she's just wearing everybody else out because she's creating problems and slowing down the process because she's refusing to wear a mask.
They're putting the germs in the air.
Yeah, putting everyone else at risk because it's just mind-boggling, just absolutely mind-boggling. But the only plan that they've come up with is making America great. So
they have done that at such an efficient level that we are now minus 180,000 Americans.
That's right, minus.
And
that's how great America has become.
But you have
right, and we rounded the number off. It's higher than that.
But that's only COVID. There are other sicknesses and
Dr. Barber says that not to count what poverty is doing to people alone.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, no new jobs. He's saying he's put more people to work than anybody else has ever done. It's like, how do you do that when COVID shut everything?
No unemployment.
Yeah.
Payment.
Right. So all these folks are once again voting against their own self-interest. You're about to be evicted, whether you in a house that you have a mortgage on, or whether you're in a, okay, and we ain't gonna give you no money. Okay,
and there's nowhere else for you to go. If you're in Charlottesville, and housing is at a premium. Exactly. And slumlords are renting their places for handsome sums because there's nowhere else to go.
Right. So, when it comes down to it, is that, the old saying, there but for the grace of God go I. Many people are becoming very acquainted with there go I.
Well, I won't
and by the grace of God, a few may not be out there. But the point is that all those times when you pass that person, and you could at least say, God bless you, or good morning, or whatever.
And now it's you. Yeah.
And now it's you.
Yeah, but
People who never thought they ever would be, with degrees.
and
The
see,
system
and
is bankrupt. I was listening to a conversation of women in the business on Friday, I think it was. No, Wednesday. And one minister made a point. She says the policing system is acting the way it was designed to act. It was never for public safety. It was for a corralling black and brown bodies to where white people think they ought to be relegated. And so when we talk about defunding or reorganizing the police department, we're talking about making the institution over because this was broken so that it becomes a safety mechanism for communities rather than the policing agency that it has become because it doesn't work.
well, and at this late day, when you have when was slavery over, and people feel like they still have the right to police you and tell you where you can go and what you cannot do, and all of the above. And so and pretty much the whole of what the police system has been is to keep people in their place, or what they felt like were in their places where they should stay, and so on and so forth. The tragedy of it is, and when you look at the whole sociological side of it, when you find that you have non-people of color that have so identified with the 1% that they vote against themselves because there is something about them being considered that pulls them up by whatever bootstraps or whatever they have, that puts them in a mindset that says, yeah, we're just like the 1%, when in actuality, when they raided all the women that were the welfare queens, that wasn't a person of color, and the 13 that they pulled.
Not one.
Right.
And newsflash, the Silk and Diamond, the two Amos and Andy buffoons who were for the Trump campaign, hadn't seen them. They got new wigs, and now they're trying to sue because they got fired because their services are no longer needed. But I don't know who they thought needed them in the first place. And I'm sure they didn't get top dollar for whatever buffoonery they performed.
Well,
but now they're
look, now he has. Okay, look, I can conceivably understand if you've been incarcerated for a period of time, and along comes this white boy, okay, who gives you a party, okay, and you got to stand in front of the RNC and proclaim that the Lord has delivered. Don't get me wrong. God is good. He's good all the time. Okay. But understand one thing. It is but by the grace of God. It is not DJ Trump. Okay. And these people are projecting a confusion, the same kind that 999 was projecting. Well, now 999 is 666. He's down. Okay. And all them people that were around him. The point of the matter is that we cannot forget. We cannot forget. And I tell people this all the time. Is it there I work with, the guy at this place I'm at? I said, there for the grace of God go I, in 3 Washington Circle, homeless, unemployed, okay, broken, okay, don't know where I'm gonna get it, don't know how I'm gonna get it, but God makes a provision, okay? And whether you want to say you believe, you don't believe, but you know what? When the rubber meets the road, God. Okay. But God. And that's the thing that people need to understand is that anything that we have right now, anything we've ever had, first of all, but anything that we have right now is by the grace, mercy, love, kindness.
But see, that's the problem. you're a believer. We're believers. So that makes sense to us. Folks who are not believers don't hear that. They don't understand it. They literally have no way. They have no ears to hear, no heart.
And one of Trump's major donors, I've forgotten her name, recently wrote that she thought a book of the Bible should be named for Trump.
Oh my!
And I read it because I'm incredulous, but I say that because it points to the level of confusion and unknowing that people are in. The scripture is quite plain. If you don't understand the things of God, if you haven't allowed God into your heart, then God talk makes no sense to you. And she doesn't begin to understand the level of blasphemy she's engaging in. She has no idea. She doesn't think she needs to know. Though she's got money and she has influence and what she calls power, but she has no idea that the real power is God's, and that if God says, everything she's got and everything she is gone. But we're dealing with people in this group. We're dealing with folk who think they're God, or who think their money and their power and position give them God-like abilities, and that they are somehow not eligible to undergo the regular problems that the human beings undergo. They think somehow they're exempt. It's not true. And we are about to see Donald J. Trump go up in flames. And it's because he does not understand that he is not God. He's about to find it out. And he's about to find it out the worst way you possibly can. And we shall all see it together.
Two situations bear themselves out, and I think they're rather telling in their approach. Is what Paul talked about was that when they knew God, they didn't honor him as God, and he turned reprobated mind. And so what we tend to do is, we look at all the horrific things, all of the inordinate behavior and all the other stuff, but then he talks about the malice and the hatred and all the other stuff that's come to that. But however, one other take that I'd like to insert in that is looking at Psalm 73.
Psalm what? Oh, okay.
Psalm 73. And Psalm 73 is rather interesting because you have this is a psalm of Asaph. And Asaph was, when David was unable to build the temple, then he began to organize the temple worship and all the rest of the stuff that was there. And he chose Asaph, and there were a few others that he had in service, and the other one was Zechariah. But so that's kind of another story. But this is interesting how this story plays out, because in this story we look at Asaph. Asaph worked in the temple. He was chosen by the king to carry out this work. Okay, so David could not handle the stuff relative to the temple, because God said he had blood on his hands, so he wasn't going to do anything for him. And so at the time, somebody was going to have to be king. So Abijah and all the other people, they were lining up to hook up and get the thing. And God appears to Solomon, and he asks him in a dream. He says, "Well, what would you ask of me?" And in his humility at the time, he said that I would have the wisdom how to judge between these people, these people, your people. And so so we find this situation here is where David is pretty much kind of off the scene, and Solomon has come in. And so he starts out saying, almost kind of like we said, saying we have God is good all the time, God is good. We got that down, it pops out, it's like a slogan and he hits it. So he starts out, he says, truly God is good to Israel, even to such as are of a clean heart. And so we began to look at the story, and the interesting part of the story is that Solomon was blessed beyond compare. It's almost like looking at the states. And so because he decided that he was going to do the right thing relative to the God said, I'll give you riches and so on and so forth, And so, he was basking in the fact that he was rich, and that famous story, well, he had uncanny understanding, where the two moms, one had rolled over and killed her baby, and the other one, still had the baby, and she was saying that was my baby. And so Solomon said, when they bought the two of them there, he said, okay, this is what we're going to do. Then he called for her and a half to the other woman. And the mother was she couldn't imagine her child being split in half. But the other woman was just happy to be right, okay? She didn't care if the baby died or not. She was just happy to be right. And so Solomon said, give the baby to the woman that was saying, don't kill the child, And so we get this whole thing. But in the midst of this situation, we have Asaph, who was starting to feel and see how Solomon began to change. He had 1,000 different wives that was carrying him away off into other stuff. Okay, so then he began to see how the rich were moving up, and those people that really didn't care anything about the Lord, and the whole kid and caboodle, and all of this was going on and on and on and on and on and on, until he got to the inner sanctum, in the sanctuary. And in the sanctuary, he began to see himself, and he began, well, before he could only see the rest of the people, but he began to see himself and his position relative to that. So I think if we had to do a comparison, we have gone on for years, and the Lord has blessed the United States of America and our land and stuff. And people have become arrogant as a result of the blessings that they receive. And then they boast around and they do whatever the heck they want. When you see that pastors being taken out because they're having a menage a trois, and somebody else has something else going on, and so on and so forth. So you see that judgment is beginning on top of the Lord. But he says that when he moved into the sanctuary, and he began to see in the sanctuary that he couldn't stand in the place of God's righteousness. And what we're having to deal with now is when the Lord says our righteousness is but filthy rags. And as a result of what he was saying, he was having a moment, but he became fortified, because he realized even he wasn't up to something, and God was God, and he did not have respect or person. And what we're dealing with now is that we've incorporated in God we trust, and evangelical,
all this stuff, mean none of it,
and the whole thing, as if God has put a rubber stamp on it and said that's
on everything, just because we say so. Remember when we were in Bad Homburg? John, Nehemiah and I were in Bad Homburg. What was it, 3-4 years ago?
Yeah.
And y'all are the holiness folk, but you asked me to pray, and it all came out in tongues. I'm going, oh my! I went, oh my! Shut my mouth.
And it wasn't quote unquote an evangelical. It was like straight up Lutheran. And
straight up Lutheran. I went, where am I? What?
But the interesting thing was the time of it. There was a level of a hostility in that place where people were calling us on, why are you here? And what are you here for? And do you have a right And then the moment where we call the invocation of the Spirit.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
When you have the invocation of the Spirit, when you stepped into that, it was like
it was
Yeah.
over. And nobody knew what
it
folks
was.
didn't.
It
If you
was. It
didn't
was
know what was
total.
going on, you didn't know. But they shut up, and the space became open, so that the
Mm-hmm.
Spirit could roam through there. I went, oh, excuse me, Jesus. All right.
I find those moments, Brenda, to be very scary, humbling, fearful that I am not worthy. Because we always talk about, yes, God's gonna show up and He's gonna show out and all of that, and we trusting and we're believing and all of that. But in those moments when you're at that Red Sea, or the old folk like to say, when you're between that rock and that hard space, okay, and the only way, your only anything, okay, and this is happening to me at BET. God showed up, showed out, turned stuff over, okay, and restructured everything within a span of, well, he didn't have to take that long, but within a span of 2 hours, okay, because my boss told me at 10 o'clock in a meeting with another supervisor, if you ain't finished this stuff by Friday, you done. At 1 o'clock, I was in charge of the department that he had been managing.
See?
Because in the transition, I walked out of the room. I wasn't worried about it, but God had already worked it out. So I get downstairs, got a call from the phone company. They need to pay this stuff. He said, take this thing upstairs to the VP. The VP, I walk in the VP's office, and he's like, who knew about this thing and how long it's been going? He's like, go back downstairs and write a memo and come back. As I'm leaving his office, now I ain't had no conversation. Executive secretary said, yeah, you work in the engineering department, don't you? I'm like, yes, ma'am. He's like, yeah, you can deliver this. I ain't talking to nobody, Brenda. I ain't talking to nobody. We had no conversation, okay? I came up to get payment for something. I leave his conversation to go back downstairs. And she's like, here, deliver this. So I'm going back downstairs. My boss is coming up the stairs. And I said, oh, they told me to deliver this. And he looks at it and reads it. He said, when did you find out about this? What you know about this? I know about what? So he goes back upstairs for the meeting. They relieved him of all duty, took his power, moved it over to another believer.
Give me your ID card. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, very close to. And you know what?
Pack your stuff.
The guy had been this guy's boss. And you know what he did? He said, John, I want you to go run the department. So I'm getting fired at 10 o'clock. At least in my former boss's mind.
In somebody's idea, in somebody's mind, you were.
But and that's why I said in those Red Sea moments, you just don't. And you know what I did? I went out to the satellite uplink trailer because it's isolated, and nothing there but the transmitter, bunch of fans running, and cried like a baby.
Yes.
Because I gave him praise and I gave him thanks. But I also cried because I was scared. I was truly scared because when we talk about God showing up and showing out, and I understand a little bit, maybe a migraine of sand a bit about when he told Moses, I'm going to put you in the cleft of the rock because you can't stand to see my glory.
Yeah. But here it is. Boom.
and I'm just saying, when he does that, our minds, our ability, our conceptualization of anything, we do not have the capacity to grasp that.
Just blown. Just all we just say, I'm grateful, grateful, grateful. Saved by God one more time.
Yes.
But the sense in the story is that God is always doing that.
Always.
He's always doing that. It's this. It's
Always.
the same.
It doesn't happen one time and no time, or just one time. Always, all the time.
He's always. It's like you know, when I was looking at this this woman, her name is Eleanor Bumpus, is the grandmother that was in 1984 that they decided that they were going to evict her in the Bronx.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so the story is that they showed up, 6 policemen showed up, broke the door down, took a shotgun and shot her hand off and then shot her in the chest. And then there was a lot of hoopla about it. And when I looked at the situation, because my friend from New York sent it to me, and I was thinking like, where was I? Okay, so the way it came down was the commander of the police said at the time, he said, it's scandalous. This should never have happened to a mentally ill person. And the founder was saying, Mama wasn't mentally ill at all. That was the cover that they were trying to place on it. But then I began to look at what was actually happening in the story was that, okay, the state of New York she was behind $98 in the rears, and they wanted to throw her out. So the state of New York couldn't have come up with that. She had 7 kids. You tell me they couldn't come up with that and pay for her for Mama to stay in? And then the police just did what they've been doing all the time.
Police do.
In the particular situation. And I read the story again because I hadn't read it before, and I cried. And my feeling, I felt like Asaph. It's like, Lord, okay, don't you see? And then I began to read how God says that the cries of the people have come up before him. And he is taking care of business. And I really believe that this is, how can I say it? This is one of those times where we're seeing God intervene and take care of business, because he will not have his name defrauded by anybody, and he will not share his glory with anyone else.
Nope.
And I believe that this, what we're seeing is the one of those King Uzziah moments where he says, when King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord. But then he began to see his whole inadequacies in that. Yeah. And then God says, I need somebody to go. Who's gonna go for me? Okay.
Yeah.
And to call up, because he called up, when he calls up, I know we talking about the sitting president calling up people, but when God calls up his army, and like he told Moses, it's like I am okay. I am the one who hears. I'm the one who sees. I'm the one who provides. And then in this particular situation, the frustration is if you do not have the Lord, it's like what they said, we're like people that are most miserable because we have no faith. We don't have a leg to stand on. And the frustration gets to a level that it's almost impossible. So then the enemy starts to take you out. Okay. Then there's all this discussion about people hanging themselves, which we all know that ain't it, and that's a fallacy. But then the side that comes up is that they produce the whole thing about suicides, that it becomes, I've never been in a situation where I've heard so many young people they're talking about so many young people committing suicide. Our community always off the table is because you can't take what you didn't give.
Yeah, no
and
training.
So now what we're hearing is this is the option. So it's being produced so much. it's straight up what the word says. It's the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And so,
But on the
so
other
you,
hand, God, what Jeremiah says is like when you know God has sent you to do something, God gives you an assignment, you have to do it because it's like fire.
sure,
Shut.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you.
You know, it's
See,
the
they don't
one
know.
thing.
They don't know. They don't know. And the prayer
Yeah.
has to be that they will come to know who God
Mm-hmm.
is. Hmm.
but
Mm.
you understand that those 66 books were written to the church, okay, and the judgment starts at the church because we're supposed to be the salt and the light. So he's going to get rid of that. He's going to get rid of all those false prophets. He's going to get all of those people that are identifying
Yeah,
in
child. This
false.
Jerry Falward Jr. stuff. This is just the tip of the iceberg.
Absolutely,
Mhm.
absolutely, and it's how can I say? It's a terrific place to be and to see how this is playing down, and then you really see that how that how can I say it? When you cut all the concerts out, I don't care how big you are, you can't have a concert. You got a record deal, you can't do no concert.
Yep.
Whether you are whether you are Dave
You better do
Matthews or
Spotify.
Kirk Franklin.
No matter who you are.
And so
No matter who. And
it
trust me,
doesn't.
all those folks sitting outside the White House for an illegal convention with no social distancing and no mask, watch
Right.
the COVID-19 break out.
Right. What is it? Break out like wildfire?
Like
Mm-hmm.
wildfire. And
You
what
know,
do you expect?
I would have thought these people would have been bright enough after 9/99 out of Colorado, okay, to not be up in here like that.
And we're not talking about intelligence. This has nothing to do with intelligence. This is lizard brain stuff. This is the oldest part of the human brain, and folk trying to see. Trump is doing what every demon does. When they know their time is short, they try to take out as many and as much as possible.
Because even bro, he said he ain't going down by himself. So
And he ain't.
He's not going out by himself. And so kind of you kind of have it. And so here we have the situation where now you get people ask you, well, what you doing up in there? Well, okay. So
what you doing up in there?
I was invited to Porto Cervo. Porto Cervo is like Malibu.
Oh, I don't believe you should go.
No. This has already happened. I was invited there. Okay, because my friend she had opened an ice cream shop. And so she said, well, what we do is, I'll sell ice cream in the daytime, and then you come down, there's a large patio, then, I'll change and, we'll dress up and then perform in the evening. And so as it would happen, all the young people that were supposed to come and do her work and do her ice cream stuff did a no-show on her. Her boyfriend that was supposed to come down and give her a hand came down to get his tan adjusted. And so there you have it. And so since I wasn't doing ice cream, I had my little motorbike and I was riding all over Porto Cervo, and I got a chance to see it. So then her fiance invited me to go to the disco. This huge disco. It was a disco and a restaurant. And
when was this?
This is a few years back.
I thought that there was no
Yeah,
COVID going on for all of these goings around.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm about to get to the punchline now. Don't
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Okay, so I mean, the place was called the Billionaire. Okay, the Billionaire was this huge place. I mean, I don't know how bigger places have you been to where the money is flowing and everything else is flowing, and the rest is a restaurant and everything else, and the disco and so on and so forth.
Was it Monaco?
It was so popular that the people that were VIPs didn't have to pay because the other people came to see the VIPs.
Okay, it's their version of Las Vegas. Okay.
So anyway, long and short of it is this, that spend time there and so on and so forth. This year, all of that was shut down for a minute with the lockdown. So they decided to reopen. So when they reopened, we were doing pretty well. The curve was flattening out and so on and so forth. And the young people were chafing at the bit because it was summertime. They need to get their tan on and get their groove on at the beach and so on and so forth. So they said, go ahead. So Sardinia and all the other places south started to open up, and all the people from the north and the south, the east and west, and the Stranieri, whatever, the foreigners start to come in. Well, the guy at the Billionaire who owns the Billionaire, who was actually once upon a time the fiance of Naomi Campbell, but we ain't even talking about that. And I did sing at his wedding, so we ain't even talking about that yet.
Moving right along.
Turns out they shut
Down.
his thing down because he tested positive for COVID because he had been saying in his pizzeria and on the whole thing that it's just the folks and all of that. And then at his location, there were 52 other people that came tested positive.
Wow.
Now then the broom, the broom hasn't finished sweeping yet. The other discotheque, that's the Air discotheque, they shut that down because they had almost equally the amount of that. And the deal is that when I went there, the thing that I noticed that people were so interested in seeing the VIPs that they would stand there at the port for hours just to see who was coming off the yacht and what were they wearing and so on and so forth, as if they didn't have a life. Okay, so when they shut all that down, and we're getting towards the end of the holiday season, everybody came back. You know what they brought back? COVID.
Every bit of it.
Big numbers. Young people. Okay, so mind you, Sardinia didn't have no numbers. They're the ones that sent those people that came back.
They certainly did. Just say you got to leave away from here. We don't know where you going, but you ain't here.
But then they decided to open up, and so now
lost their minds.
Now, so we have this on the brink that all these people that were at the beach and on holiday have brought COVID back.
Well,
then the schools are opening and COVID is there. However, now this is the other side of it. You have the boat people. So they're saying that you have to keep them in quarantine because they're going to bring the COVID-19 from the boat people. They ain't got it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Don't mess with God.
Can't compete. Your arms are too short.
You can't outthink God. You just can't.
You literally cannot. And but what I'm saying is, it's like, this sounds just like the United States. Don't close the borders and all the other stuff. My friend who has been trying to get to Italy, he got stuck. He was hanging out with the Christians in Miami.
Oh.
yeah, we're trying to get something going on. They ain't doing nothing.
Not
And
one single solitary thing.
he lived in Cuba. He can't return to Cuba because the borders of Cuba are closed, and they won't let him leave Miami.
Child, let me tell you, I think it's Nevada. You can't get out of Nevada for to 18 states. I mean, come on. We can't go to Canada. We can't go to Mexico. And Europe say you can't come here. Oh, and by the by, if you want to take a honeymoon in Hawaii, if you go, you got to quarantine 14 days. So they advise you not to come. This little young white couple tried to go. They booked their little flight. They got on the plane. They got to Hawaii. Got to the
Lockdown.
hotel. The people in the hotel say, them folk just got off the plane from the mainland. The police picked them up at the beach, and they spent their honeymoon in quarantine separately because they say we took in tow, didn't we? They will forever remember that honeymoon. You think we playing with you? We ain't playing with you.
Well, this is what they're doing in Ryanair, is that they have to give you a number that proves that you have been checked. And if you don't have that number checked, you can spend as much money as you want
You
to
will
on
stay
that.
right there. You ain't going nowhere.
Absolutely.
I'm fitting to get my charge back on this ticket I bought a year ago. I was supposed to come to Italy. Remember, I got sick, and then I was going to use that the credit to come to Geneva. Well, the border's closed, and now here we are. I've got 2 days before it runs out, so I'll call them in a little while and say we charge this back because you see clearly I can't go nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what they're doing? They are refunding. They are refunding because my peeps from down under said that they kept moving the ticket back the ticket back because they really didn't want to lose and have anybody lose faith in whatever it was that the airline was doing. So it's like,
no, it's over. Just charge that back. Bless you. This we'll start all over again in another date.
Yeah, God willing.
God willing.
Well, you know, it's we're talking about. It brings to mind the Kurt Carr song, for every mountain you brought me over, for every valley you brought me through, for every blessing, hallelujah, for this we give you praise. These mountains and stuff, you know, God's taking care of those.
Have you heard his name, Edwin Sutton, I Hear Rain? Whew.
No, I
have to send it to you. Mama. See, it all looks bad and it's been terrible, but I hear rain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we have had an interesting conversation today. Does anyone have anything that you'd like to insert in closing?
I'm just extending the theme a little bit further. It doesn't look good, sound good, taste good, feel good, but as the prophet says, I hear rain. Go look for the cloud. There's a breakthrough coming.
Well, I believe I have my little Prime News show, and I put this one out, and I could hear it harking from way back. It says, "Master, the tempest is raging. Billows are tossing high. The sky is all shadowed in blackness. No shelter on earth is nigh."
Carest thou not that I perish?
How can thou lie there asleep? It seems like each moment is threatening a grave and angry deep. And he said, and as James said, "Get up, Jesus." because the winds and
And
the
the waves
shall
obey.
obey your will. All you got to do is
Peace.
say, peace, be still.
Be still. Ah, that's it.
Hallelujah.
Peace. Be still. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is the storm before the calm. Peace. Be still.
Peace.
No, that was Laura. That was Laura last night. They showed the video this morning coming through Port Charles, and the wind and the rain
Oof, yeah.
and just ripped everything down. Okay. They have a 12-story office building with confetti floating out the windows from one side to the other. It's been blown out completely.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's just like, you know, you don't want to mess with awesome God. You don't.
No.
You don't have it. You don't have nothing.
Nope.
Okay. That's it. That's it. We can just be thankful, you know, for his mercy and his grace. And, you know, in closing, I'd just like to say that, you know, I have learned one thing at the ripe old age of 65, and that is that, you know, God is good all the time. But beyond that, you know, as I told the guy that I'm working with, I said, he asked me, what's your mission? What are you supposed to be doing? I was like, I don't know. I said, I'm on assignment. And as far as I can determine, this is where I'm assigned to. And I will be here until he changes my assignment.
Yeah.
Mine is, he said, go be, you know, because one of the things that happens sometimes is that you think you know everything and you think you know where you're going. Well, God has a way of just changing your plans. I think Jonah referred to that. Anyway, you know, and you end up places and you just have to just shut up, be quiet, okay, pray in the spirit, and ask God for wisdom and guidance.
Yep.
And do what you do that he's giving you skill set for in that place until he decides.
Thank you, Lord.
Amen. You know, and you give him glory and you give him honor. And, you know, he feeds you, he covers you, he shelters you, he makes provision for you. And you're sitting here wondering, how am I doing? Covered. I'm not covered. Okay, you get so tired. Well, you don't get tired of hearing covered because covered is nice. Okay, but you turn around, it's covered. Okay, so you clearly understand.
Already done.
If
Not
you
only
are a
just
believer.
covered, already done.
Already done.
As we close, I'd like to read what Brother Asaph in Psalm 73 says. So foolish was I and ignorant. I was as a beast before thee. Nevertheless, I am continually with thee. Thou hast holden me by my right hand. Thou shalt guide me with thy counsel, and afterward receive me to glory. Whom have I in heaven but thee? And there is none upon earth that I desire. My flesh and my heart fail it, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever.
Amen.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
All right. Ciao,
Amen.
ciao.
Ciao.
Got one more meeting.
Salutare.
Ciao.
Ciao.